power. And so what we've got is a range with a source from a signal generator or a gun diode or whatever it is, illuminating the area that you want to test the antenna in. And we're trying to get that even. There's a detector on the antenna, so we're measuring the the power level received by the antenna and measuring it on a level meter. Just let's have a look at some of the components. We've got a modulated signal source, we've got a horn to illuminate the range, and at the other end of the range we've got a reference horn or the antenna under test. And the output of that is fed into a detector, and the detector then feeds the level meter. And all the level meter is an audio frequency measurement, that's all it is. It's just measuring the AF, detected AF. These are two gun diode modulated sources. The one on the right is a 10 gigahertz generator. This is the well-known Solfan head, which is well known and used to be commonly available. It's not quite so available now. But in this head, there's not just a gun diode. There's another little diode at the front, which is used as a detector or a modulator or mixer. And if you put plus or minus current through that diode from a PIC oscillator, you can actually modulate the signal coming out in amplitude and to some extent frequency, but mainly amplitude. Sam's smiling. Why is this? It does actually modulate slightly frequency, but if you do it the other way and modulate the gun diode voltage, you can actually produce a lot of frequency modulation, and that may or may not be an advantage. If the antenna is sensitively tuned to a particular frequency, you might get some erroneous readings if it moves the frequency off the one you set to. The design for that's on the in scatter point, and you can pick that up from a back number of scatter point. All the references are on the last slide, and the whole of this presentation will be on the internet anyway by tonight. The one on the left is a 24 gigs unit, which is a little more tricky to set up, but operates on exactly the same principle as the 10 gig one. It's just a little bit more rare to find these things, that's all. This is the reference horn side of it. You can buy these on the internet. That center one is a 10 gig horn, which was purchased, and then I took it down to Bath, I think it was, earlier this year, I think it was, and Sam checked it for me. Wrote the numbers on. The one on the right is a 24 gig horn, and the one on the left homemade, and the one on the right is a homemade. The left is a homemade one. Both of those were made to designs by G4NNS, and they're on his website. And you get a bit of copper flashing sheet, and you fold it round according to the printout that you can get from the site. And it's a remarkably simple way of making a horn. It works very well. I found that the 5.71 needed quite a bit of trimming of the probe to get the matching absolutely right. But nevertheless, it works quite well now. These are detectors. The two flat box type things are homemade. They're made from Qualcomm diodes. They're supposed to work up to 24 gigs, and they do to some extent, but not very well. They're much better at 10 gigs and below. And they also need a bit of bias. I'll come on to that later. That center one is a professionally made diode, a so-called zero bias type device, which works quite well without. This is a level meter, Hewlett-Packard 415E. I think it's the latest one they did. It was electronic anyway, that was the main point about it. The controls on this take a bit of getting used to. You've got to remember these numbers on the dial are negative. So when you're measuring the levels, these are negative numbers. and you add them together. You add the range and the reading on the dial together to get the values. You can see that the input switch in the center can be switched to high, low, medium, and for a crystal diode, and the bolometer, which is uses a thermal device. I don't get involved in that. I just leave it switched on the biased or low. Biased if it needs a bit of, if it's an ordinary diode, and low if it's a crystal detector. I don't think there's anything other than to say that the gain control, of course, is self-explanatory. You just wind that up for maximum sensitivity. This is a homemade version. G4 PMK, or well, he was GM4 PMK. He's moved to Scotland now. He's GM4 PMK. Roger. He designed a level meter about the time that all this interest was developing, about 2001, I think it was. And I built one, and it works quite well. But on the other hand, if you can buy a level meter for a few pounds, why not buy that? It just doesn't make sense to build things if you can buy them.
David?
Yes?
There was a 415 here that G3 TSA had. No one bought it, but there was a 415 here at a very, very good price this afternoon. It's gone down there. It's the D version.
And it's gone home. Fine. It's gone back home, has it?
Yeah.
Very sad. There we go. But I've no doubt somebody will ask for his name and chase after him. I'm not in control of that, gentlemen. What a shame.
I told them yesterday I might talk about it, and then one turned up before we wanted.
Yeah, they're quite useful instruments. Because, of course, you can use these instruments as a parameter, really. Using a modulated source, they'll work with directional couplers, and you can measure all sorts of things with them. Very useful instrument. However, that's my version of the same thing. Setting up the range. One of the things that you need to know is that it's no good doing it only a couple of yards away, because most dishes give a signal out, but if you're very close to the dish, the sort of energy from the dish is coming at you from all directions. And really you want to look at this from a point of view of a point source. People get very technical about this, and they call it the far field or the near field and all this. And really what it's about is where the signal's coming from. You want a position where the signal appears to be coming from you from a point source, and so you need to be a long way away from the dish. If you get very close to a dish, of course, and you had a horn trying to detect the signal from it, you'd be going all over the dish, wouldn't you? So you want to go very far away, so it's just a point. That distance, for general purposes, you're talking 25 yards away or something like that. Sorry, 25 metres, I should have said. It's old-fashioned. But so that's really where we want to be. And secondly, once we've got the distance right for 25 metres, we need to check at the antenna under test that the field on the antenna under test is even all round that antenna. Because if it varies, obviously you're going to get a reading which is in error, because part of the antenna is illuminated with one strength of signal and part of is illuminated with a different strength signal. So we need to carry out fairly extensive tests. If anybody was watching me, we must have spent half an hour getting this thing right, because we got the reference horn with the detector on, and we got the level meter, and we checked all round the dish under test to check the strength of the signal. And until we got it to within a fraction of a dB, we weren't happy with it, and we had to adjust the horn at the illuminating the range for quite a considerable number of times before we actually got it right. And it matters that it's out of any interference from the ground. It's above the ground to some extent, but not too far above the ground that it causes reflection from the ground which interfere with the signal. So it's a critical issue to get the thing absolutely right. But once you've got it right, then you're a bit reluctant to start messing about with it, So we tried to set it up for 10 gigs to start with and work our way through the bands and so on. But there weren't as many takers for 10 gigs this morning as I thought, actually. There were quite a number of people who put their names down, but we only got about 2/3 of them, I think, who actually brought antennas to us. But anyway, that's the position. We get the thing even. Once we've got an even field, we can put the reference horn in the centre of the dish under test and get the reference. Take the reading and record it on the record sheet. I'll go into that later. And then we switch the detector over to the antenna under test and check that and compare it. And then we've got to look at the difference in reading in terms of dB between the reference horn and the antenna under test, and then add that difference to the value written on the reference horn. And that's the answer. It's pretty straightforward, really. We've just got to take a bit of care in the way we approach it. This is a record sheet which we've got, and I must admit we were somewhat confused by our own mathematical inabilities this morning because we added up some of the numbers wrongly, but never mind. We got it right in the end. We've tried to make it simple. I think we ended up confusing ourselves, I think, but we wrote down the readings as we got them. The range is the range on the range switch knob, and the reading is the reading on the bottom scale. You can actually magnify this scale by a switch on the HP meter. The inner knob of that right-hand lower control is a device which amplifies sections of the bottom scale such that it puts it on that red scale at the top. You can see the red scale at the top only has 2 dBs of measurement. And the 2 dBs can be taken from any section of that scale at the bottom. And you can select it by that knob in the centre of that range knob. This is it's quite good, actually, doing that. But you've got to remember to add that value on that expand thing onto the reading of the top scale if you do that, so that you get the total reading. That expand scale is labelled 0, 2, 4, 6 and 8. And those are the values that have to be added on to that top scale if you use the expansion. Is that clear? You're getting deathly silence here. So that's where we get the reading. So the reading is either the bottom scale or the expansion plus the amount you've expanded it. You can add those two together then to get the level, because the scale reads backwards from the setting you've got. Writing the horn down at the top, the change is 0 at that point, because that is your datum. The gain of the horn is the datum, and the gain of the dish is the change plus the gain of the horn. So you add the 12.7 to the 19.6 and you get 32.3. That's what it was supposed to be. So it's pretty simple, really, isn't it? Not a lot to it. And I think that really completes the talk. We've got the modulated gun diode source. That's a PIC chip design. And that was in Scatterpoint issue 6, which I think, I haven't got the dates down. They were 2001. They were the early Scatterpoints before they were officially sort of taken over by Peter, I think.
The one that Martin CZD did.
Yeah.
For a year.
They're
on the website.
Yeah, they were around. Yeah, they were around. The middle one, I think, was about June 2001. They were all in 2001. And there was a whole series on this modulated gun source to get the illumination of the range. The tune level meter by Roger Blackwell, wasn't it? PMK. There's another one on horn construction, which you can use for reference horns, provided you get it calibrated. That's on Brian Coleman's site. And there's a printable version of this presentation will be on my site by this evening. That's all, thanks very much, I think, unless there's any questions.
The gun source, there are some Marconi units with tunable gun.
That's right, and I didn't put that on the slide.
I have one, but the gun didn't work.
Because they're high-powered those, aren't they?
Yeah, they got AM modulation on.
Yes.
Various frequencies, I forget what numbers are from, but they're very useful and quite small, and probably would run off batteries and...
that one of yours is mains operated.
Alan Melia's over there had one at one time.
Is there provision for a battery in yours?
Well, I think somebody sent me some manual details for the one I have. Something Marconi, it's 4 number.
You've got a digital dial.
Yeah, it's crank handle on it.
Yes, it's a cavity type thing. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
How repeatable are these measurements? I mean, could I get more gain by going to Bath, for example?
In theory, no. In practice, like all measurements, they depend on the setting up of the range, how even the field is, how good the reference is, how accurate it is. With a reference, it's always best to keep the transition attached to the reference, because of course if you change the transition, you return loss might alter, and that'll change the whole thing. So that's quite important. It's just a question really of keeping the conditions same. There is another source of error too, which I haven't mentioned, and that's the linearity of the diode. Because if you use high powers of energy to eliminate the range, it is possible to get the diode into a point where it might be beyond its linearity. It depends on the power you're using, but I wouldn't have thought that was possible with a normal gun diode arrangement. But I do know, because I have checked some of these diodes for linearity, just to make sure that we're in the... Oh, Sam, you...
Yeah, the comment to make on that linearity thing is it's better not to use the meter other than when you set up, you get a reference point and use the attenuator to come back to the same reference point, then you know you're running the diode at the same point. And you get much more accurate measurements that way, more repeatable measurements. And if you can get a reliable plus or minus 1 dB per accuracy range, you're doing pretty well. That's not bad.
I would agree. 1%, 1 dB is reasonable, and that's sort of 25%, isn't it? Really, of energy, which is pretty reasonable.
You probably want to know is it better than the antenna we used before?
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, you really want to know whether it's at the focus of the dish or something like that. Is there a real problem? And if it's in the right ballpark, then there isn't a problem.
There's a travelling antenna range in the States which Kent Britton WA5VJB takes around to all the American ones, and he's done them over here. Pretty repeatable results. He's got a lot of it. Sam's done it. Martlesham's the place. The one transfer from Martlesham to Bath works again, the same sort of thing, isn't it? Brian NNS has got his own range.
Yeah.
The results are very near. I've had my antennas tested on 2 of the ranges, and they're within a dB of what I said before.
Well, that's usually the case, isn't it? Yeah, with a dB or something. Yeah. I wouldn't worry. I mean, it's like return loss, isn't it? You can struggle and struggle to get the extra 1%, but is it really worth it? It's, at the end of the day, it's not a big deal, is it?
What's the approximate vertical beam width of the reference form?
Depends on the reference form. Quite a lot, I would think. If you've got other sources in the area, it could be a problem. Why were you thinking about that?
I was just thinking of that in comparison with the antenna you're evaluating.
Oh, a lot wider. A lot wider. A lot wider.
Yeah, a lot wider.
The reference on is
more susceptible to ground scatter of the signal.
Well, you are using the ground signal. I mean, that's one of the reasons why you have to have the source down near the ground, because you're trying to avoid this sort of interference pattern that you would get if you had it elevated.
That helps, but if the angle of the substitution area is very much different, so when you're evaluating that will behave in a different way.
As long as the signal in that area that you're looking at is fairly constant, then it should be okay. If it's significantly different, you haven't set up the common line properly in the first place.
Yeah, this is
looking to have something like about 1 metre square, the sort of about 10G antennas we use. You're looking for about 1 cubic metre of reasonably constant signal level. If you're using big dishes, then clearly you're going to get a lot of errors.
There is quite a difference between the aperture of the antenna and the...
Yeah, and you're trying most effectively to fill that aperture with the antenna that you're measuring.
You're doing the best you can by putting the source at ground level, but it doesn't.
As I said, you can think of all sorts of reasons why you shouldn't do this and why you can't do this. But the fact that the ranges are usually repeatable, so within a dB or so, is pretty remarkable for what they are. And certainly tell you if you've got a gross error with your antenna, which is really what it's about.
Sure.
If you've got an antenna, you claim you've got 36 dBi here, you put it in the range, and you've got 30 dBi, something's wrong.
Essentially, that's perhaps the largest concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of time is spent getting the field constant. I mean, that's the secret of the thing. If you start getting variations, you're just not. It isn't right. It isn't set up right. Sorry.
The reference form, can you construct them, fold and calculate the
yeah, I did calculate. I did calculate. Well, you've always got you've always got this business of what's the efficiency of it at the end of the day, and I think I calculated mine with an assumed, I think it was 50% efficiency, and it came out to 16.5. Actually, when it was measured, I think Sam got 17.2 or something. I thought that was pretty good. And it was very close to another professional horn that had been made, which looked identical. I don't know whether it was the identical source, but it was within 0.1 of a dB of it. So I thought, well, that's pretty remarkable. I'm fairly confident that the reference horns are being measured to a fairly consistent, actually. And if we each take our reference horns round to each other's range, what it means is that we're continually checking these things to make sure that our basic references are right. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Just for playing around and initially setting up a dish, is there anything particular to look out for in just having a simple gun source, which I might throw on the ground or sit on a chair?
As a means of eliminating range, you mean?
Yes, and I'm not. This is just to set it up and not to measure it. To ensure that I actually have got the feed in the focus.
Use the sun.
You could use a sun rather than. But I mean, I find the range so easy to use. You know, I mean, once you've got it set up there, it's so easy because you've got a thing to. I mean, sun noise is all right, but you've still got to have a meter to swing over somewhere, haven't you? It depends which way you want to go. You know.
I made that G4NNS sun noise meter, which was published, and it works like charms. Fantastic sensitivity, and putting it on the sun adjusts your feed on.
That doesn't use helix coils, does it? It's, yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
If you just want to compare one source with another, you're not bothered about ultimate measuring gain.
You may not have any actual numbers.
It's possible, I mean, people might have some ideas about this, but to use a computer with, is it G8KBB software, and it will show relative changes, and it's very easy then to see if you're improving things or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have to set a range up if you don't want to. But I enjoy. I'm one of these people who are obsessed with measurement. You see, that Peter was talking about. It was very embarrassing, actually. I thought yesterday when he was telling us all about these people who get carried away with measurement, and I must admit I'm one of them. So, but we enjoy it. You know.
A lot of these things boil down to some sort of detector and an indicator.
Yes.
A lot of them. That's all our measurements are. And I personally don't worry about the actual definitive numbers. I was like, is it better than what it was before I started twiddling? That's it. Because I can't do much else if it isn't.
But that's one of the questions. Been using your dual mode feed, feed. But then I came across an LMB and realised it was a bit of hacking around with a reamer. I could actually put a chaparral feed onto the pipe, onto the 15mm pipe, or in fact, rather ram the 15mm pipe down a bit of the LMB. So I want to see actually whether all my hard work and pile of aluminium on the floor
surprising. Appearance doesn't seem to have any effect at all on the performance. You can't judge something from its appearance, can you? The most incredible pieces of mechanical engineering produce amazing results, and they don't look anything, do they?
No.
I think that's... Oh, Sam.
Sorry. You were talking about the sun noise measurements. I'm not on a commission from John Denby for this, but he also went away with an Altec 7514 noise meter, and I know one person said to me, well, there was no noise head for it, but actually that's an extremely good machine for measuring sun noise. You don't need the noise head, you can use it for that purpose, and it was the version which has got the various IF options, and it was at a really good price. He's taking it home with him now.
Yeah, I have an Altec meter, and I have to say, I found it needed a lot of gain in front of it.
It does?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Well, the early one was a 30 mega IF only, and I found that when I had one of those, I used a microwave line 2 meters of 30 meg down.
No, I've got one with the mixer.
I've now got one with that option.
Yeah, I've got one with the mixer in, and even then, you need the 144 amplifier in front of it.
Yeah, if you use it with its 160 meg IF input, which is one of the standards on this version, just put some additional gain, probably another 20 dB gain, it'd be absolutely fine. It's got the high gain positions on it anyway. If you can't get sun noise off that, if you can't get a noise off that of the 50 ohm source, there's something wrong. Yeah,
the one thing about sun noise, though, it's not frequency selected, is it? You know, if you're testing an antenna for 10.4 gigs, I mean, if you're measuring sun noise, you might not necessarily be checking actually 10.4. It's like maximum smoke with this, isn't it? You know, you're not quite sure whether you're measuring harmonics or
you will be measuring different levels at different frequencies. There's no question of that. Look at VK3UN software. That will tell you what you should get for any size of dish. And it's not sun noise, it's sun, the cold sky. If you just tweak the maximum on when you're looking at the sun, you can end up misleading yourself. Look for the difference between cold sky and sun.
So if you take a long time to do your measurements, you've got to do it again.
Well, it varies anyway, doesn't it, sunrise?
Yeah. Is it not better to use the ground as the other reference?
If you've got a reasonably directional antenna, then yes. Again, if you're using a moderate gain antenna, you've got to be careful because you can get ground noise. You don't know if you haven't got loads at the ground, so you've got to be a bit wary of that.
And beacons, you know, set them up within the ballpark with a beacon. If you've got a beacon, it doesn't vary very much. If you can hear a beacon, you're all lucky.
Yeah.
Just a quick one, Dave.
Yeah.
What's the significance between your reference, you're transmitting a tone, and you're actually detecting, and only the RF, what you're taking the audio off only. Why don't you use the RF?
You can do.
You can do.
You can use a power meter if you want. You can use a power meter if you want, but it's a lot cheaper to use a level meter, isn't it?
Yeah, I just wondered why. You've only explained that you're using a tone, but
if you actually check the, if you put it on a signal generator, this system, and move it up in 1 dB steps, it's amazing how linear it is. It's absolutely staggering.
There's one way or the other is.
Well, no. If you make the receiver system too sensitive, you'll get beacons and all kinds of other things as well. So you've got to be careful of that. Whereas a nice deaf diode
with the modulated,
good.
Yeah, the modulated tone does actually cut that out. That's true. That is true.
You're supposed to check that anyway.
There is, in my view, the other point that most power meters, will only allow you to measure down to about meg 30, meg 40 before they start to drift. Whereas if you come down to audio, I mean, I've got a selected level measuring section which will go down to meg 80.
Yeah,
so it's much more sensitive and it doesn't drift.
I think the unit Packard 8484 will go down to -70, won't it?
Sorry?
It goes down to -70, the 8484 head. On the Hewlett Packard power meter.
Yeah.
There was one on this.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
I know. I've got one, but I don't want
I'm still using 478.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine.
Right, thank you, David. That's
You're
very
welcome.
good.